He never wanted to disappear. He wanted the opposite. He wanted his name in every newspaper, his code in every headline. His shadow stretched over an entire city for 50 years and counting. And the strangest part? It worked. Even now, in 2026, nobody knows his real name. Nobody has ever proven it, despite decades of investigations, hundreds of suspects, and several police agencies working the case at the same time. But everyone knows what he called himself: the Zodiac. This is the story of a killer who turned murder into a puzzle, who taunted detectives with letters and secret codes for years, and who made absolutely sure that puzzle would never be allowed to end. It's December 20th, 1968. A quiet lover's lane just outside Vallejo, California. Two teenagers, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, are sitting together in a parked car. The kind of ordinary night thousands of teenagers were having all across America that same evening. A second car pulls up behind them. A man steps out, carrying a pistol. He doesn't say much. Within minutes, both teenagers are dead. No robbery, no struggle that investigators could ever fully explain. Just two bodies in the dark, and a killer who walks calmly back to his own car and drives away into the night. At the time, it looks like a tragic, isolated crime. A senseless act of violence with no clear motive. Police have no leads, no suspects, no name to attach to it. 6 months later, on July 4th, 1969, it happens again. Another young couple, another quiet spot, this time inside Vallejo itself. Darlene Ferrin is killed. Her friend, Michael Mageau, survives, shot multiple times, but alive, and able to describe what he saw. And 1 month after that, the letters begin. 3 identical letters arrive, almost simultaneously, at 3 different Bay Area newspapers. Each one contains specific details about the murders that only the killer could possibly know, details the police had deliberately kept out of the press. And each letter contains something else entirely: a cipher, a block of strange hand-drawn symbols. The writer claims that buried inside it is his real identity, and that he'll be revealed if anyone out there is smart enough to solve it. He signs the letters with a circle, crossed through by a single line. He calls himself Zodiac. Here's where this case stops being a normal murder investigation and starts becoming something else entirely: a public chess match between one man and an entire country. Within a week of the letters arriving, a high school teacher in Salinas and his wife sit down with their own private hobby, amateur cryptography. Working at their kitchen table, with nothing but pencil, paper, and patience, they crack the very first cipher, the 408 symbol cipher, in less than a week. Not the FBI, not the CIA, not a government cryptanalyst with decades of training. A married couple, working a puzzle after dinner. The decoded message is chilling. The killer writes that killing people is more fun than killing wild game, because man, he says, is the most dangerous animal of all. He claims he's collecting his victims as slaves for the afterlife. But here's the twist. He leaves his name out, on purpose. He sends more letters. He kills again and again. By October of 1969, Paul Stein, a cab driver working the streets of San Francisco, becomes his 5th confirmed victim, shot inside his own taxi, just blocks from a police station. This time, there are witnesses. A description goes out over police radio, almost immediately. Officers even stop a man matching that description on foot that very same night and let him go because the dispatch call had gotten a key detail wrong. He sends a piece of Stein's blood-soaked shirt to the press as proof that he is exactly who he claims to be. The city isn't just scared anymore. It's obsessed. And then he sends one final cipher, 340 characters long. He claims in writing that this one will finally reveal his name. For 51 years, nobody solves it. Over the decades, investigators chase down hundreds of names. Letters, tips, confessions, deathbed claims, The file grows so large that parts of it are still sealed today. But one name keeps surfacing more than any other: Arthur Leigh Allen. He fits a disturbing number of details. He lived in the area. He owned a watch with a crossed circle logo almost identical to the Zodiac symbol. A childhood friend later told police that Allen had talked, casually, about killing people and calling himself Zodiac years before the murders ever started. But here's the problem with true crime stories that want a clean ending. The evidence never fully closes the loop. DNA testing on the envelope flaps from the killer's letters, run in the early 2000s, failed to match Allen. Handwriting experts who examined his writing disagreed with each other for decades, some convinced, others not. He was investigated, reinvestigated, and questioned multiple times over 20 years, and never charged with anything connected to these murders. He died in 1992, still officially nothing more than a suspect. Other names have come and gone since. A more recent push to identify a completely different man, built on facial comparison software and circumstantial evidence, made international headlines in 2021. It was firmly rejected by official investigators for failing to meet any real legal standard of proof. This is the uncomfortable truth sitting at the center of the whole case. We have letters. We have a voice on the page. We have a symbol that almost anyone in America would recognize on sight. We don't have a face. Now, here's where the story takes a strange, almost satisfying twist, even without an ending. In December of 2020, a trio of amateur codebreakers finally cracked the 340-character cipher that had stumped the FBI, the NSA, and amateur sleuths alike for half a century. The team includes an American software developer, an Australian mathematician, and a Belgian programmer. None of them are professional cryptographers. One works in software out of Virginia. One is a research mathematician in Melbourne, Australia. One writes code-breaking software as a hobby, alongside a regular warehouse job in Belgium. Working together remotely, they generate roughly 650,000 possible ways the killer might have rearranged his own symbols. Then they run each one through specialized decryption software, searching for anything that looks like real language hiding underneath the noise. After years of dead ends, fragments finally start making sense. A phrase here, a recognizable word there. Within days, they have enough of the message to send it to the FBI for official confirmation. The decoded message isn't a confession with a name attached to it. It's something almost more disturbing. The killer writes that he isn't afraid of the gas chamber because it will simply send him to paradise all the sooner. He still doesn't tell us who he is. Maybe that was always the point. Here's what stays with me about this case. More than the murders, more than the codes. This man had one goal that we can actually prove, beyond any reasonable doubt. He didn't want to get away clean and quiet. He wanted to be known. Not by name necessarily, but by mystery. He understood something genuinely dark about human attention, that an unsolved puzzle is more powerful and more permanent than a solved one ever could be. A confession would have ended in a trial, a verdict, a sentence, and eventually silence. Cases get solved, and then the world moves on to the next headline. But a cipher gets passed down. Strangers spend their weekends on it, more than 50 years after it was written, refusing to let it go. His shadow has now outlived every single detective who ever chased him. And maybe that's the real lesson hiding underneath this story. Some people are less afraid of consequences than they are of simply being forgotten. The Zodiac didn't just want to kill. He wanted to be remembered for it, forever, by people who never met him, who weren't even born when he did it. So here's the question worth sitting with after this video ends. How much of what people do, the loud, dramatic, attention-seeking choices, the ones that seem to come out of nowhere, comes not from confidence at all, but from a quiet fear that if they don't make noise, the world will simply move on without them? The Zodiac made sure the world couldn't move on. We're still talking about him, more than 50 years later, on a random day in 2026. That was the whole plan.